Hi friends, I'm James Binns. I'm the founder and CEO of Network N. The N in Network N was a hilarious joke we invented in a pub, and my tip is never invent the name of your company in a pub. The N actually stands for network, so the legal name of the company is Network. We have to explain that joke in pubs, which is easy, but to lawyers and accountants as we get bigger. I named the presentation The Future of PC Games Marketing. Essentially, it's 36 slides of how fucked you all are with a flashing GIF at the end saying buy ads. I'll tell you a bit about Network N first. We're a 7-year-old business. We're independently funded. We're at 70 staff now. We do 3 things. We make websites. The most famous of those is PC Games N. Particularly delighted speaking at a PC conference because I can slag off consoles and mobile. We're an ad network. We sell about 17 million ads every day across about 85 sites. And we're an agency. We help people when ads are not the only answer. For example, we were the ad agency that helped launch Fortnite in Europe. We look after owned by HP, a PC manufacturer for esports content. And we look after everything Game do when they talk to their audiences. We launched a mag for them recently, which is the biggest games mag in Europe. So we're back in print, which is odd. So there's many caveats in the speech. I've never made a game. I've picked examples that work. Won't talk about, very small there, esports influences, blockchain or real-time ray tracing. And when I was an editor of magazines, I used to edit a mag called PC Format in the 90s. I was told, if somebody writes down one thing in your presentation, you have won. In a magazine, one tip they take, you've won. So here we go. We were so close in PC. We almost made it. We almost reached the promised land. Everything worked. Maybe about 2009, this golden age of Steam. But everybody wants to control their audiences. Everyone wants a slightly bigger share of the money. And we had this one-stop solution, but the problem of PC game discovery got unsolved. There was a flood of launchers. Of course, most famous of those is Steam, but Battle.net's launched its own launcher. That's the place you get Call of Duty now. Wargaming has its own launcher. They put a couple of games onto Steam, but they're pretty set to own their audiences. Riot, technically, that's a launcher that launches League of Legends. And when they launch their second game, one day, Riot will put their games on. GOG's the launcher. That little yellow thing, anyone know what the yellow thing is? Anyone? WeGame, Chinese version of Steam from Tencent. Discord launched a shop. I haven't put the Twitch logo on because Twitch closed their shop and didn't really tell anyone. And then, of course, there's the Epic Game Store, which is fairly disruptive. So this flood of launchers, there's all these different places to buy it. And what we've really done is taken, the story we're told is, we're breaking down the walls. So Epic will say, we're making cross-platform gameplay a thing. These walls were terrible. And we have these walls between all the brands. All these platforms with walls. But actually what we've replaced them with is, we've gone from vertical walls, do my little dance, to horizontal walls. We've got a whole new set of problems to solve. And let's not forget, the biggest PC games are not on Steam. World of Warcraft was never on Steam. League of Legends was on Steam for like half an hour when it was a Sierra game. World of Tanks is not on Steam, Minecraft is not on Steam, The Sims, and Fortnite was never on Steam. And Fortnite managed to get to 400 million players without Steam, about 80 million on PC. So first of all, there's all these stores. And then you've got challenges around algorithmic recommendation to try and solve. Does anybody know? This is the more like this box on Steam for a game. It recommends Dota 2 and Counter-Strike CSGO, Valve games. Does anybody know what? You'll never guess. This is the more like this box for Polybius, a crazy pixel shooter by Jeff Minter that is a sort of shoot 'em up. That's unusual, isn't it? So how is discovery profitable? Discovery is profitable when you get to promote things that make you more money. So the default on Steam for recommended is their games, Valve's games. But when you think about discovery, what you've got to understand is people are not going to build you discovery algorithms that help market your PC game. They're going to do ones that make them the most money. And of course, on-platform discovery is collapsing. In kind of back end of last year, I don't know if you followed it. If there's any indies here, you almost certainly followed it. They sort of tweaked the algorithm a little bit, and it reduced the number of games, independent games, that were shown in the recommended box. Lots of indies reported their revenues dropping by about 50%. And that shows the absolute horror of what will happen. In December, there was a leak of what Steam's UI might look like over time, and this was a Steam internal briefing. Now, there's something interesting about that page. There's no related games feature on that page, so there's no more like this at all. So these game pages may end up not having any cross-promotion. And of course, the Epic Store has limited discovery. They built a very curated store. Pop quiz again, I want an answer from the crowd. This is the Epic Games Store homepage. It's a shop. What's not on this page? Have a quick look. Anyone? Search button. There's no search button. Perfect. Very good. Did you know that before? Oh, yeah. So there's no search. There's no search. I looked and looked. I'm glad that someone else has not seen it, because I looked and looked and was convinced I'd gone blind. And I refreshed and I looked in all sorts of different ways, couldn't find it. No search. No search. That's unusual. And on the game pages, no cross-promotion. So you send someone to the Steam page. It's great, actually, for you, because you send someone off there, and it doesn't recommend another game. Perfect, because you've sent someone in there. That's your customer. However, what you don't get is the reach around when you get to promote your game to someone else's audience. So that sort of collapsing on-platform discovery is pretty harsh. And the fire hose won't slow. Hilariously, I put this slide going off the bottom. It's the only one that breaks the fourth wall of my presentation. 30,000 games now on Steam. You could play one a day for 80 years. So when people talk about shouldn't Steam do a better job of curating, good luck with that. Closed markets like Epic help. Maybe they'll say 50 games on Epic Games Store in the first year. But really, you're a starving mutant outside the megacity if you're not making that cut. So, there's going to keep going. And since I understand there's a mobile event happening this week, how is PC different to mobile? Well, there's a lack of a dominant store. You have one choice on mobile. You have really good CPI control. So all the money in mobile marketing can go into straight CPI because you can understand it. There's a really good cross-promotion market. There's businesses like Vungle or Chartboost, and it's a very knowable thing. And with PC, discovery is still on the web. We spend a lot of time looking at search volumes. We use the Google AdWord key tool. You should all know about it. I've got a slide data talks about it. And if you look for the phrase best iPhone games, hardly anyone Googles that. Hardly anyone. So the discovery is not on the web. If you Google best PC games, lots of people Google it. And luckily, PC games then is generally top 3. So it's very different to mobile. And you look at what's big on console, well, first party dominates. This is the best-selling games of 2018, selling rather than played, which will include free-to-play, particularly Fortnite. 8 out of 10 of those are first-party games. And the 2 that aren't are mega brands. So Red Dead Redemption 2 and Call of Duty. So there's very little space. If you look at what's big on Steam, you can go, well, 9 out of 10 of the top 10 games played day before yesterday when I made this deck were living games, right? So these are games that have a long-term relationship to their customer, where people keep coming back. Football Manager was the only one that's not a living game. That's more of a game of life, really, for life, really. And 8 out of 10 of those games were released before 2018. So it's a very static market. The 2 that weren't released before 2018 are Football Manager, again. Well, that's frequently updated. And Ring of Elysium. That's the free-to-play bump of the month, where a free-to-play game arrives, everyone plays it for a bit, and let's see how Tencent do with that as it continues. Also note, 3 of those games are first-party. But first-party is not enough. Let's look at Artifact. What a clusterfuck. Artifact launches, gets to 60,000 concurrents, and is now around 2,500. So all the power of the Dota 2 brand, loads of Steam promotion, popular genre like CCG, not enough to make Artifact a success. And Artifact's a good game. It has slightly rapacious billing, but it's actually a pretty strong title. By the way, now you can buy all the Artifacts cards for less than $100 because it's gone so badly. So I've talked a lot about the problems. So how do you survive in the future? And I'm trying particularly to give you some ideas about things. Now, this is fairly incomplete as a list of things for PC marketing strategies for the future, and I'm going to be outside for another hour. I'll hang around for a bit if anyone wants to talk to me. And I've given only a few examples, but I think there are 6 principles which you want to think about a lot on PC. And I'll talk about each of them a little. Choose life cycle is my first one. How do you think about the life cycle of a game? Do you market in the same way all the way through the life cycle of the game? Well, of course not. It sounds very obvious. But what are you trying to do early in the life of a game? I've got examples for each of these about how you build, launch, and then run evergreen promotion for a game. How do you build awareness for a game? This is a picture of Tom Francis. He's my hero. He made a game called Gunpoint. He used to work on PC Gamer with me. And Tom knows about talking to audiences. He knows better than anyone else. And he made developer diaries for Gunpoint and then Heat Signature. Talked to his audience consistently in the build-up. He refused to make a trailer for the game until after it shipped because he didn't want to build any false expectation. Tom told everyone exactly what he was going to do all the way through, curated his community, and kept going at it. How do you launch? Here's an example of how you launch. We worked with Curve, there's some Curve people here today, on the launch of Bomber Crew. Now, Steam has something that the console platforms don't have. It has a new and trending view on games. And if you can push your game into the new and trending box, you'll get homepage promotion for your game on Steam. And it's one of the few hacks you can do on Steam. Now, to do that, you have to think about velocity of sales. Bomber Crew is a particularly good example because it wasn't on early access. So if you can launch a game and go very hard at your marketing, and go off like a rocket, and you haven't got to sell that many games to get in the new and trending box because it's by the hour, and if you can get into that box, you'll win. And we did this Bomber Crew. We ran ads all over our network and a load of sponsored content, and we're able to really aggressively push it. And that stayed number one over the first weekend, and it got off to a flying start. One example of life cycle, how you might think of Evergreen. So 30,000 games on Steam, you can promote your game every 8th week. Maths, friends, that means that there's possible 4,615 games on sale each week. So loads of people I talk to say, well, we make most of our money in the Steam sale weeks, and hardly anyone promotes their sales. Hardly anyone buys advertising for their sales. Hardly everyone celebrates that discount. They rely on it being surfaced. And I think the one thing that some of the smart people we work with do is they choose to promote their sales. Because if the game's out, why wouldn't you pour a little bit of money on? If you look at how everyone else advertises, they advertise around the discounts. And in gaming, that's somehow taboo. My second big principle is about owning your customer. So when you talk to audiences on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, what you're really trying to do is build a cohort. You're trying to build a group of followers for your game. And if they watch your video on YouTube or watch your video on Facebook, you are trying to drop a cookie. If you do social media and you don't have a data strategy associated with it, you are wanking into the Nile. Wanking into the Nile was what the emperor would do in Egypt to spread fertility. And capture some email addresses as well. I put this little black box on the bottom. The black box is on the Epic Store. They are very much encouraging you to build your own social community. If you put your game on the Epic Game Store, you get the email. You get to access the email addresses of your players. But before they've even done that, they're encouraging you to build your social media followers. Sometimes people approach us to buy advertising off Network N, and they haven't registered their name on Twitter for their game name. And I'll do it as a bit of theatre with them and register it and then ransom it back to them. So you want to get it registered very early. I don't really ransom it. Another way you can own your customer is by sharing great stories. So if a media owner writes about your game, you should promote that content using your owned channels and cookie the people who've read it. So here's a story about Insurgency. PC Games then wrote a story about it, and the publisher of Insurgency was delighted to promote the content. We got a little bit of traffic from it, but more importantly, they got the third-party endorsement and the promotion. And you should build cookie pools. I've said this before, but here's an example. Here's a screenshot of our Google Ads account on Overwatch. We have over 500,000 cookies of people who've read Overwatch content on PC Games on one of our sites. And that ability to build a group of people you can talk to. Now, we're not writing about Overwatch to sell that list to Blizzard. We're writing about Overwatch to sell that list to Epic, or anyone else that wants to buy data, not Epic. Anybody else that wants to buy data targeting games a bit like Overwatch. So your ability to build that. Let's slag off Artifact a bit more. I've got 1 minute left, so I'm going to go a bit quicker. Artifact needed to build cohorts, right? So if you are building these cohorts, you've got to segment your audience. Now, we all know that the biggest CCG is Hearthstone. Magic the Gathering Arena is pretty big. Using the platform on Steam, they had absolutely no way to reach Magic the Gathering Arena fans or Hearthstone fans. None at all, because these games are not on Steam. Magic the Gathering's on a separate platform, and will be coming to Steam soon, which will finish Artifact off, actually. And Hearthstone is on Battle.net, of course. And they also had the lore of Dota 2. And they didn't work with Dota 2 communities. I know that because I'm one of the biggest Dota 2 pages. We didn't really talk to them at all about how they would activate the lore, to try to do everything on platform. I advise you all to read about Adam Nickerson. When you're optimizing for stores, Adam runs a company called Nickervision. He does the best job of telling people what to expect of the game and making sure he ticks every box on tagging. When you're describing your game, I'm going a bit quick now, think about the language people use. Here's an example. You think your game is a co-op game. No one really searches on Google for the phrase co-op game. Tell everyone it's a multiplayer game with co-op aspects. Tags are super important. One of my favorite things was how bad Steam used to be at tagging. Here is the page for the phrase soccer on Steam in 2012. Pop quiz, what's missing? Yes, Football Manager isn't there. Football Manager isn't there because Sports Interactive refused to call it soccer. It's football. And I told them repeatedly, I begged them to just put it in the meta description of the game. No, it's not football. And what actually had to happen is they had to solve it with tags. They still haven't got the word football today, soccer, today in their product description. But the tag, that's it. So think about the tags of your game and make sure it's well tagged. I'll talk about video for a second. Think about video and how it's different for each channel. I talked about this, how Tom makes explainer videos rather than these high-impact video trailers. If you're making a trailer, I implore you, don't treat it as your Michael Mann moment, where you create a generic sci-fi or cyberpunk or whatever your game is. You want to create this vanity piece, but it could be for any game. You have to say what's different about your game. Make explainer videos. And when you design video for social, it's 2019 and people are still trying to put YouTube videos on Facebook. Make something that will play portrait, recognize it will auto play on silent, so put text on the screen, and if you're really smart, then play a brand to work with you. And I'm on 17 minutes from my final slide. Now I promised on slide 36 I talk about buying ads. Finally, promote everywhere. You need to see the web as your discovery surface if you're promoting PC games, because Steam isn't. On the web, you are one click away from buying the game. On every other platform, it's more clicks, right? Amazon is Google's biggest advertiser because they know you're only one click away from being able to purchase on Amazon. And this is hard doing web advertising and social advertising and content distribution all in one go. And one of the things I worry about with PC developers particularly is they're often the smartest people in the room, and the belief that they can do all of it because Notch did it or because Mike Bithell did it is a mistake. You actually need to really work out what it is you are trying to achieve and which channel you're going to use. That's it. 18 minutes. And I could have talked for another 2 hours, I'm afraid. But have you got any questions? That was overwhelming, wasn't it? I'm sorry. I used the word wank. Sorry about that, Alex. Cut that out. Hi.
I'll ask a question. So, do you with all the sort of, because I'm going to talk a bit about Steam Apocalypse as well, and I'm interested in the continued pipeline of stuff. What do you think the net result we're going to see of that? Do you think we're going to see a kind of collapse in studios, or will it just, because there's lots of new entrants coming in, it will just carry on? There'll just be an ever increasing pile of bodies, so to speak.
I think the fire hose is never going to stop. Tools like Unreal Engine make game development relatively easy, and people can live out their passion. I mean, we talk about this sort of like flipping assets and how evil that is, but don't forget there's also loads of games that are because people love the idea of making a game. Game courses keep turning out candidates, and you can make a fun, playable experience quite easily. I think people will work out niches better, but I think that fire hose won't stop, and I don't think Steam will take any responsibility for curating it. At the moment, they're relying on their audiences to curate, so they're relying on dissatisfaction. The only way you know a game is bad is if someone got suckered into buying it, or you can tell by the screenshots. Yes.
Hi, my name is Justin. So, quick background on me. Used to be a top 50 in the world for esports. Managed a lot of Dota stuff, so a lot of the artifact stuff hits right at home. Quick question. So, what's interesting is my background's like in influencer relationships. Why don't you see stores moving towards more of kind of FOMO activity of what your friends have? I mean, really, at the end of the day, especially when you look at these more multiplayer games like Fortnite and everything else, it's kind of less about the game and it's more about the social experiences. And people really, obviously, the perceived value is you go out and you buy what your friends have. Why don't you see stores moving towards more of that and their regards to the FOMO of what your friends actually have and what they're playing, and trying to do more of kind of a curated store mentality? Because it seems like everybody's moving towards that and less social type experiences.
100% agree. If I had a seventh key principle, it would have been that kind of slide about friends lists. And you can see how early Valve was, how important friends lists are to Discord, and that feeling of what your friends are playing. I was trying to focus on how to kickstart a game, because you get to FOMO when you've got a certain amount of momentum. Also, I think the influencer thing is dead interesting, but I kind of knew that there's plenty of influencer stuff here. I think Epic recognises influence as dead important. You can see that they are running their own influencer product inside the game store. And I think with Fortnite, it was peer pressure. It's making people get it. I think the idea that everybody else plays it. The starkest example of that was FIFA versus PES on console, where you'd see that why would you spend a minute learning PES when all your friends are playing FIFA and you want to build your skills there? So I think that's a very good point.